What's up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning in to another live episode of Friday Fuel. I know I have been idle for a little bit, but I just want you guys to know the work has not stopped. I have truly been busy in carrying out my purpose. I've actually been preparing this topic because I felt that it was very, very necessary. As you know, if you've listened to the previous episodes, you know that I have been alluding on different pieces of my story. This topic here is very, very important because it has such a negative connotation in today's society. We are going to be talking about grief. Grief is definitely one of those relevant topics that we need to discuss and remove the negative connotations from it. So today I have with me three beautiful ladies that have agreed to sit down with me and discuss grief as it relates to each of them and their journeys. I have here Dr. Rachel Watkins, Miss Arlene Watts, and Miss Shaniqua Mackey. I'm going to introduce each one of them and then we'll get into our discussion. Dr. Rachel Watkins is a dedicated pharmacy leader and compassionate community advocate based in Charlotte, North Carolina. Originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, she earned her Doctor of Pharmacy degree from Purdue University School of Pharmacy in 2008. After relocating to Charlotte, Dr. Watkins began her career with Atrium Health, where she has served in various staffing and leadership roles over the past 17 years. She currently holds the position of Director of Pharmacy at Atrium Health Stanley in Albemarle, North Carolina. In 2025, Dr. Watkins founded Ruthella's Touch. Ruthella's Touch, a nonprofit organization established in honor of her late grandmother, Ruthella, who passed away in September 2023. The mission of Ruthella's Touch is to empower individuals experiencing homelessness by providing spiritual nourishment, recreation, and resources to restore dignity, build self-esteem, and foster well-being for a brighter future. Raised in a close-knit family that values hard work and a strong faith in Christ, Dr. Watkins is the youngest daughter of 6 children. In her spare time, she enjoys participating in community outreach events, traveling, cooking, and cherishing moments with her friends and family. Thank you, Rachel, for joining us. Next, I have Miss Arlene Watts. Miss Arlene Watts is a loving mother of 3, 2 of which are angels. She's a native of Charlotte, North Carolina. We don't see many of those today. One of her favorite scriptures that she lives and walks by is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. We are walking by faith, leaning not on our own understanding. Thank you, Arlene, for joining us today. And last but not least, my girl Shaniqua. Shaniqua Mackey is a 33-year-old technical trainer from North Carolina, Gastonia, North Carolina. She works for a medical automation company where she gets to help others learn, grow, and develop. She is passionate about reading, traveling, and deepening her faith in God, which is necessary to get through grief. One of her favorite verses that guides her life is Ephesians 2 and 10, which reminds her that she is God's handiwork, created with purpose. She strives to live intentionally, using her gifts to make a positive impact wherever she can. Thank you, Shaniqua, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, ladies, let's get into this conversation. What does grief really mean? When grief is spoken about, what comes to mind?
I would say for me that grief is an outward and inward expression of someone that I have lost, or could be a person, a place, or a thing, someone that I no longer have here on earth or physically enabled to be around. But it's always with someone that I love, that I have deep compassion and care for. because we do not grieve what we do not love, right? I might have empathy and sympathy for someone else, but for me to truly go through the grieving process of having those moments of sadness or just hearing a song that can affect me, having that grief is with a deep love and care for someone or something that I have lost. And not only just for the past and the present, but also grieving the future of them as well.
I would agree with Shaniqua to what she said. You know, grief to me is that you've loved. So if you haven't loved, you can't grieve. Grief, I don't only see grief as in death, because you can grieve the loss of a relationship. You can grieve the loss of, a job and all. And it's something that has been taken away from you, and now you've got to figure out how to live without it. But it's something that you've loved, so you're going to have some type of feeling about it. So I know with me, with grief, is because I loved and because I cared, I grieve.
Yeah, and I can jump in. So I consider grief to be just giving yourself the time and the space to acknowledge the loss of something, whether it's, a family member, maybe some version of yourself. It could be a hope or a dream too. I mean, I've had to accept loss in that way too. And I can think of a quote that Queen Elizabeth said, and she said, "Grief is your payment for love." And so if you've ever truly loved someone or something and they've gone, the price for that is the grief.
Absolutely. So one thing that I've noticed that each one of you said, and I can, agree with, is grief is love. So one of the things that has came about most recently that I've heard on multiple different platforms was grief is love without a home. How do you take that? Like, what does that look like? Like, what is that? Like, grief is love without a home. So is love being homeless? How do you build that home for it?
I think I definitely agree with that, because home does not feel the same anymore for me. So home is definitely a feeling, right? A feeling of comfort, of security, of belonging. And you don't have that person or that thing or that experience anymore. So you are trying to find a place to feel that. For me, it would be diving into prayer, right? To find that sense of community is where I found, for me, home. And not necessarily in the people that I would consider family. It was people that I didn't even expect, right? That community that was able to come and pour it back into me, something that I did not have or I could not produce or place somewhere. I was able to put that into community, and they were able to put that into me as well.
Yeah, and I can kind of empathize with the feeling of home because my grandmother, who I lost, really had a way of making you feel like just so special. And I'm used to feeling that when I think about home. And so when you have love and you don't have the feeling of home anymore, you kind of feel displaced and you just don't know what to do anymore about it. You're just homeless, like you said. You don't know what to do.
Yep. So, Shaniqua, I got you here because you lost your grandmother, who was like a mother.
Yeah.
Speak on how losing your grandmother affected your life.
So the funny part is that actually her death date was a year ago, just a couple of days ago. So yeah, so to be here to rehash all of that is a blessing, I would say, in most ways. But so it was like losing my mother again, right? So I was raised by my mother. My birth mother, her daughter, passed away when I was 12. Well, right before I turned 12. So that is all I had, was my grandmother to rely on how to become a woman, of how to develop and experience life, was through her. So then when it came to the time of losing her, it was like my life shattered. Like the air left out the room. When she stopped breathing, I stopped for a moment. I could not move. I could not fathom what life would look like. It's like she won't see me have children. She won't see me get married. She won't be able to say my name anymore. So I hold on to that. So that was a difficult process because it was a long, drawn-out process. You know, she was preparing me, even though I didn't realize she was preparing me. Mm-hmm. You know, she was asking me to help pick out headstones and to, you know, she would call my name and tell me, I just want you to be happy. I just want you to be happy and healthy. That's, you know, I just want you to be happy. And I'm like, okay, you know, okay. And then even to the day she passed, right? Even to the day she passed, I went through that process with her, you know, going into the hospital room with her. And it seemed like as soon as I stepped in the room and she heard me say her name, she was like, okay, I can go. Because somebody, my baby's here with me. And I told her, no, you got to hold on a little bit longer. Some more people need to come in the room before you leave up out of here. But that experience, I have gotten to the point now where I'm like, she is still with me, but it's just different now. She's not physically with me, but spiritually she's with me. So that is the process that I had. It was God orchestrated for me to be there. Normally I'm not at home, but when I tell you the God we serve, just made sure that he was like, no, I need you to be there, present in that moment. So yeah, that was my process of losing her.
And I can relate a lot to that because it was kind of the same way with my mother. When I lost my mom, you know, sitting there at the bedside, and when, I mean, you know, you was here with me in Charlotte when I got the phone call, and they was just like, you know, she's not going to make it. She hasn't eaten in 24 hours, you know. The body can't live like this. The body can't go on. And I'm like, okay, but God has the final say-so. And so after sitting at the bedside, it's like, okay, we've been sitting here almost 2 months. Yeah. Like no food, no water, no artificial means or anything. I was like, okay, but I leaned over her and I'm like, Mom, it's okay. I'm going to be okay. Let go, let God. Yeah. But I don't need you laying here suffering just to make sure that I'm okay. Yeah. And I felt like that when I said that and I walked out of that room, because it wasn't 2 hours later, I got the phone call and it's like, she's gone. But it was just like, once they hear that you're okay, then they can release. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I feel that it's so important for people to release, and why I have each of you here today is because each of us have a different story, and it's led to a different purpose in our lives. And I feel like that once we release it, not only are we freeing ourselves, but we're freeing somebody else who feels like that they're alone and that they can't go any further. Because like you said, when that moment happened, it was like the air was sucked out of the room. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on? And it's like, we still got to go on. I heard most recently that actually Tommy had an interview with a city councilman, Malcolm Graham, and he was talking about grief. He lost the sister of one of the, his sister was one of the Emmanuel Nine. And he was just like, we got to do the work. Like, that's how we're getting past it. We can't sit still. Just do the work and we'll get over it. So I think it's very, very important to release that air, to release that story so that we're helping someone. Which leads me to you, Rachel. Losing your grandmother, and yes, I was by your side as well. But you actually put boots on the ground and got to work. Tell me about the impact of losing your grandmother and how you've been putting in the work.
So, like you mentioned, I lost my grandmother in September of 2023. Her name was Ruthella Johnson, and she was absolutely my favorite person in the whole world. There's a running joke in the family that we don't really know who her favorite was, but I tell everybody I was her favorite granddaughter. She was just an amazing woman, amazing cook. She loved purple, which is why I have on purple today. Loved the electric slide. Had so much joy and laughter every time I saw her. She was just a ball of fire and so much joy. But most of all, she loved the Lord and his children. Like you mentioned at the start of the podcast, her favorite verse was Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. And that woman lived by it, literally. Anytime I would go to her for advice, she would be like, Rachel, just put it in the hands of the Lord. And so that's all I knew to do my whole life, just put it in God's hands. You know, just having her be a part of my life was just amazing. And I'll tell you guys about the last week of her life, what it was like for me. She left me 3 amazing gifts that week. The first gift was that she allowed us all to take care of her in her last week of life. We came from near and far just to love on her, read the word with her, hug her, kiss her, give her hand rubs, anything that she needed, we were there. And most people would think that's a gift to the person, but it was really a gift to us. She blessed us in so just a major way with that. The second gift she left for me would be on her deathbed. She had enough strength in her voice to tell me that she loved me one final time. Whew. And that's something I'll take with me forever. I'll never forget it. And then the third and final gift that she left actually happened when the chaplain came to visit for the last time. They were in the room just discussing God, reading his word, and then there was just this moment of silence. And then she lifted her hands and started proclaiming the goodness of God.
Wow.
And that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life, to see somebody facing death literally just say how good God is. I believe that she did that for 2 reasons. The first is she knew where she was going. The second reason she did it was she knew that God was waiting for her when she got there. And so that was just a beautiful moment, and I can even imagine God welcoming her into the gates of heaven with open arms, saying, well done, good and faithful servant. And so that's the way she's impacted me, even going on to now, present day. I have started a nonprofit in honor of her this year, fresh off the press. Like I said, going back to her, she was just a beautiful soul. She had a way of making people feel seen and loved in a major way. And through Ruth Ellis Touch, we're going to make sure that her legacy lives on. You already kind of gave the mission of Ruth Ellis Touch, but the mission is to basically pour into individuals facing homelessness through recreation, spiritual nourishment, and resources, just to build up their self-esteem and just to restore their dignity, because we forget about them sometimes. And last month we were able to have our first outreach event, which I'm really excited about. It was just an amazing event. We partnered with a local transition house, and we had a family paint night for families, and it was good to just see the smiles on their faces, just being able to disconnect from life and say, maybe I don't have to worry about for the next hour, I don't have to worry about what I'm going to eat. I don't have to worry about where I'm going to stay. And there's a lot of people that actually pour into the homeless population, but it's always from the standpoint of food and shelter. And don't get me wrong, those things are important, but I think sometimes we forget that they're people too. And because they are, they have needs for recreation and also spiritual nourishment. So that's what we're doing with Ruth Ellis Touch. I'm excited about it. I know that my grandmother is looking down and proud of everything I've been able to accomplish with it. And this is just only the beginning. God is going to do some amazing things with it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it's important to give back, because we are all 1 second away from that place. We don't know what tomorrow holds. We don't know what the next minute holds. You know, so it is very important to give back and to lean on God and just know, believe, trust, and truly have faith that He protects us. He gives us that peace. He is the reason that we are still standing. And we were left behind for a reason. They went on before us for a reason. So I think it's very important that we do carry out whatever that purpose is that they left behind for us. So Miss Arlene, I could sit and talk to you all day. But I would just like for you to elaborate on your losses, and how it has impacted you. And you got some sunshine baskets that I came across, and I was a little jealous. I ain't gonna lie, because I was like, they don't do that where I go. But I need you just to elaborate on your loss and how it pushed you into sunshine baskets.
Absolutely. Well, I was a young bride, first of all. Got married at 18, married for 14 years. In 1993, at the age of 34, my husband was murdered. And then you talk about 3 gifts. He left me 3 gifts, 3 children to raise. I was angry with God because I got married and had these children. I didn't want to raise these children alone. This was, we were a team, and now I'm here with 3 children to raise alone. Now, I have my family, come from a large family. It's 12 of us, and I'm the favorite. But so I had my family, but to raise those children alone, it was, God, what's your plan? And as a child, my mother raised us in the church, and we always trusted and believed. I saw how she handled death. And I can remember my husband was murdered Easter morning. He and my brother were out watching the Duke and Carolina game. I'm not a Duke fan. Go Carolina.
Wait a minute now.
Hold on now. Hold on.
That's another story. But they were over in the Greer Heights area at this game room watching the game. And he and my brother were together. And he said to my brother, I better get home. Your sister, she's crazy. If I'm not there for sunrise service, it's going to be some consequences.
Yeah.
And just from what people were telling me, as he was leaving, it was like Duke won that night. That's a different story. But they was leaving, and they were in my dad's car, he and my brother, so he was going out to warm up the car. And as he went out, there was this gentleman that we knew. He grew up was in the neighborhood, and so we knew him. And my brother said he noticed him going out the door behind him. Don't know what. Bottom line, he shot him in the back. He was shot in the back 3 times as he was getting in the car. So I'm home. I receive a phone call from my mother telling me that his name was Sean. Sean has been shot. And where it happened at, and I said, I'm on my way. I left my children in the bed at the time. My daughter, who was the oldest, she was 14. And I had my middle son, Sean Jr., he was 12, and my baby was 6. So get over there, and as I get close to the area, I had this warm feeling that came up over me. And I said, Lord, I was hoping you'd wait till I got there. But I know it's okay. And when I got over to the scene, police officer, I get out of the car and go through the motions with them. And I just says, I just need to know, where have y'all taken him, which hospital? I know he's gone. And the gentleman who murdered him, his niece, came up to me and said, Miss Arlene, my uncle killed your husband for no reason. So we get over to Presbyterian Hospital, and when I got there, he had passed. As a young bride, because I was 31 at the time, something about those 3s, because he was 34, and I'll get into those number 3s in a minute, and I was 31, but I get over there, and when I get home, and I got to get home because I got to tell my children what has happened to their dad. So it's, okay, Lord, I don't know what I'm going to say to these kids. By this time, my dad had gone and gotten the children and brought them to their house. So we're going, I get them together and we're talking, and I let them know what had happened, and your dad has, he's transitioned and gone on home to be with the Lord. So my baby boy at the time, my oldest two took it, pretty bad, because by this time it's about 5:30 in the morning. Well, my baby boy at the age of 6, all he wanted was to put on his white suit because he was going to do his Easter program. He was in the play. He says, Mom, I'm not understanding. What's the problem? Today is Easter. Jesus rose to take my daddy home. Why are you sad?
Wow.
And I said, well, you're absolutely right. I'm sad because he's gone. And I said, he's going to go to church with us this morning. But he says, well, do I have to stay home? Can I still go to church? I says, absolutely. So I called my pastor. It was Dr. George Cook at the time, to let him know what had happened. He says, I'll be by to pick him up. I said, Cedric wants to go to church. I don't know if he wanted to go to show off that white suit or what, but he wanted to go to church. And my middle son, Sean Jr., wanted to go. So my pastor came and picked them up and took them to church, and my daughter and I stayed home. And we got through that. It was a trying time, but I found myself with my children trying to buy them peace. So whatever they wanted, they got. It did not matter. Didn't care how broke I was, how I made it happen. Want to go to Disney? Sure, we're going to Disney. We can't afford to go to Disney, but I did what I thought was making them happy. So they got busy, 3 children into everything, that it was burning me out. But it didn't matter because I had to be strong for my children, is what I thought at that time. But I found out my children were strong for me. But I remember trying not to first cry around them. And when my baby boy Cedric asked me, he says, Mommy, do you miss Daddy? I do. He says, why don't you cry? And from that day forward, I've never let my children not see me cry. I shared the tears around them. And then I fast forward, the kids are all grown, although my middle son was determined that I couldn't date. No, when I get out of the house, you can date. So I said, we'll make a pact. You never date, I'll never date. It'll be you and me. Well, Mama, that makes no sense. Well, but I got so caught up into my children that I didn't date. I did try to date maybe 7 years ago, but I realized that my husband had to come first. Well, it had to be God, then my husband, then my children, and I wasn't willing to do that. So I got focused on my kids, caught up, and then, everybody's graduating, and then it's me and my siblings. But we got through that, and, through the time, by the grace of God, because we never lost faith and never stopped trusting. And God just kept me through it. And at that time, I was always running into women who had lost their husband. Okay, God, I don't know what you wanted them. I don't have the words for them, but I find myself sharing my story and getting comfort from telling my story, and how, with the help, and God knows I could not have done it, first and most with God, but my family. They, sometimes family, you can fall out, and sometimes families say they're going to be there and not. But my family has never not been there. And I wouldn't know how to do it without them. And then we fast forward till my daughter was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma at the age of 33. She got through that. And I remember my middle son saying to one of his other friends, he said, Mama couldn't deal with if something happened to my sister. And if I have to take this, I'll take it. At the age of 33, my son had Hodgkin's lymphoma. My daughter was a survivor, and she was in remission. And at the age of 34, I lost Sean. Not from the cancer, but from the chemo. And everybody say he was my child. The other two, they say was their dad's child. But he was a mama's baby, and he'll say he was my favorite. We always say he was the one that didn't nobody love, only a mother could love, because he hollered all the time and we didn't know why. But the boy just hollered. And I remember when after he rung the bell from his last chemo treatment, we're in there and we're happy. And the doctor had told him if he had some symptoms of shortness of breath and that they needed to know. And about 2 weeks later, he started having shortness of breath. So we took him over to the Navon Hospital, and they kept him, something's not right. His oncologist kept saying, oh, he's going to be fine, this happens all the time. The lung doctor kept saying, this is serious. And we kept praying, and we kept praying, and we kept praying. They end up having to put him on life support, and he hated that. And he says, Mom, I need you to take this off of me. So he's writing, I have a journal that he used to write when he couldn't talk, he used to write. He says, I can't live like this. I can't. I need you to let me go. If you let me go, I can go. He says, I am okay. The Father's ready for me, but I need you to be okay. I need my sister to be okay. And I need my brother to be okay. And if you let me go, I can go home and be with the Father. This was on April the 3rd. Now, my husband was murdered on April the 3rd.
Another 3?
It's another 3. My husband was 34 when he died. My son was 34. And I said, Sean, I'll let you go, but you can't go today. This is not your day. You cannot go today. So right now, on April the 3rd, I'm not letting you go. We come in, it's April the 4th, and the doctor comes in. The oncologist says, oh, he's going to be okay. I said, okay. The neurosurgeon, the lung doctor comes in, and they're talking to me. So on April the 6th, she comes in, I'm sitting there, because I never left his side, stayed at the hospital, never left his side. And he says, he was pointing to his neck, I need this out. So I asked the doctor, I says, can you take that out of him? He has something he wants to say and he don't want to write anymore. And he says, it's time for me to go. But I need you to say, it's okay, Mom. And I said, I don't know if I could do that right now, Sean. So I called my pastor and I said, he keeps telling me he's ready to go. But prior to that, on the 5th, I had a dream and God spoke to me. And I remember calling my daughter saying, our prayer is not going to be answered the way we want it to be answered. It's not. But it's going to be okay. And she says, Mom, what are you talking about? I says, it's not going to be answered the way we want to. So when he got up that morning and he had written on his paper and asked the doctor to and she came in and he says, I need to see my sister and my brother. And I need y'all to let me go. So the doctor came in and she says, are you here by yourself? I says, yeah, but I'm getting ready to call my children. So I called my daughter and I called my son. I says, your brother needs to see you. And my daughter freaked out. I says, just come on over. So they came over and he says, Cedric, I need you to take care of Mama and Selena. I'm ready to, he says, that morning train is coming. And Mama, I'm getting ready to get on it, but I need you to let me go. And I said, I am son, but I can't do it right now. I just got to talk. So the doctor comes in and he wants to know if we want to resuscitate him. So I'm yelling at the doctor. I says, God gave you a gift and you do what you need to do to get it. And God will do the rest. Don't you? I allowed them to resuscitate him once. I'll never do anything else like that again.
Absolutely.
He came to and he says, no, Mama. And my daughter says, if you do that again, I'm leaving. I can't handle it. And I says, baby, if you're ready to go, Mama's ready to let you go. Because the doctor said, do you want to pull the plug? I says, I can't make that decision. I need you to do your job and allow God to do his. And I said, Sean, I can't make that decision. I need you to make it. He looked at the three, he says, and we called everybody in, my sisters and all of them came in. And he says, I love y'all. And I'm going home. And I just need you to be okay. I said, I'm okay, baby. And he held my hand, looked at my daughter, he looked at me, and we looked at the doctor. I says, I know. And he left. But he used to have this mantra when he loved his job, and while he was out, he would always write. Now, grant you, I paid for his education, paid a lot of money at North Carolina A&T, go Aggies. And he used to always say, I'm still out here. Boy, don't you know how to say I am still out here? But he would always put hashtag still out here no matter what he did. And it was always a smile, and he would always bring smile wherever he go. He didn't allow anybody around him to be sad. You know, you fussing, you mad, he's going to say something stupid out the way to make you smile. So when he passed, everybody, we got these shirts. My tattoo that I really want to get taken off, because I just don't want a tattoo anymore, but it says I'm still out here, you know, so I need my education to feel out here because it says still out here. So everybody got these tattoos. All the girls got the infinity still out here, and the boys got what they had on his obituary, a tattooed on them was still out here. And one thing I learned from his death was his funeral was one of the most talked about in the city of Charlotte, with the amount of love that was shown for our family. Not necessarily those that knew him, but knew our family. I remember the fire marshal coming into our church. I attend the Greater Mount Sinai Baptist Church on West Boulevard, telling my pastor that they've got to shut it down because the buses can't get through. And we had to stop the people from coming in. And I was just so overwhelmed with the love. I can't tell you who was there and who was not there. It was just the love that was shown for our family. You know, he was a big New York Giants fan, so we had these New York Giants. It was only one person in there that we didn't care for, and that was my brother who had on the Dallas Cowboy stuff, because we asked everybody. But you know, and we got through it. And my baby boy, I didn't know at the time, because he held it in a lot, and we talked, and they had gone through counseling when their dad died, and so they were excited about that. But he didn't like to talk about it, and his brother, he was very close to his brother, and that was his protector. You know, you could look at one of us wrong, and he was there to protect us. And I never knew that he was internally holding this in, that he turned to drugs. He kept it hid from me, but as a mother, you know something is not right. Something is not right. But when Cedric, my baby boy, one of the sweetest, caring young men, I had a sister that passed, and my sister that's here today, every time somebody got sick, he was their caregiver. You know, he would go in between work. He was the neighborhood uncle. I live in a Hispanic neighborhood, and he was Uncle Sergio. I don't even know why he was Sergio, because his name was Cedric, but he was Uncle Sergio to the neighbors. And I could just remember, you know, he could speak Spanish very fluent. I couldn't, so he would have to tell me what was going on and what was said. But he never did. I used to say, Cedric, something's going on with you, and I don't know what. Okay. But he never missed a family function. We had a lot of family functions going on. We do something, you know, somebody can say, I got my ears pierced, so we get together and we just like to eat. So we celebrate life daily. So we're sitting there, and I'm saying this all this to lead up to now. Cedric is, we decided, my daughter decided Cedric wasn't going to turn 34, you know, because her dad died at 34, her brother died at 34, so they decided they was going to skip 34 for Cedric. I didn't skip it, he still turned 34, but Cedric is now 36. And at Christmas time, we do the countdown to Christmas, so 12 days of Christmas the 24 days to Christmas. Every day before Christmas, we do something different at it. So this particular night, was getting ready for night one. I read the story to the children towards the night before Christmas. Cedric always dress up as a character. So he dresses up, and the kids that come over, we give them gifts and stuff. And because of Sean, we had sunshine baskets. We just wanted to make everybody. So we gave gifts in honor of in honor of Sean. And Cedric also, let me back up a little bit, with these sunshine baskets that we developed to come out of Sean's, because he was such a giving and caring person, I decided that we want to make these baskets. And whenever someone is diagnosed with cancer and they're going to their first treatment, and we work with the doctor that was their oncologist, they'll let us know about it. So we'll make this basket. I'll put about 30 items in the basket, wrap them up. Yeah. And it may be anything. It may be some bubbles. It may be some jacks. It may be a puzzle, maybe a $100 gift card. It may be a pack of quarters, just stuff, just random stuff. It'd be things that a child will open and they get excited. And when I present this to these families or individuals, I let them know the sunshine, that smile that Sean brought on us, and that our prayer is that whenever you're having a down day, because all days are not going to be good, you're going to have some challenging days. I just want you to reach into your basket, grab one of the gifts out, and open it. And our prayer is, as Sean did with us, that it would bring a smile to your face on that moment. So we call them Sean's Sunshine Gifts. And so with that being said, we had a child that was diagnosed with cancer. It wasn't his first treatment, but somebody told somebody that told somebody that told my daughter about it. And she says, hey, I have somebody that can use a sunshine basket. But there's a catch, it's a child. So what do you mean? And this child was going through, and he was 8, had been in the hospital majority of his life. And things wasn't looking good. And he was getting ready. So anyway, fast forward, he loved Spider-Man. So Cedric dresses up like Spider-Man. And we go, again, and spend money that we don't have. But it's okay. My brother says, God just keep blessing you with your broke self because you just continue to do this, and we do. So, and we go over and he's dressed up like Spider-Man. And when we knock on the door and we open the door, this child, the smile on his face, he has his oxygen in, but he sees Spider-Man. And I can remember Cedric saying, I'm glad I got this costume on because these tears won't stop rolling down. But the smile that it brought on that child's face at that moment, So Cedric was the type that done stuff like that. And fast forward to the Christmas time when I said, Cedric, the night before he was getting ready to go, he gave me this hug. And I was, let me go. Why are you hugging me so tight? So then he hugs me and he picks me up. And, so that was another story. They would pick me up. I said, why are you hugging me so tight? Boy, let me go. He says, oh, Mom. And I said, Cedric, tomorrow we're reading that story. You better be here and you better be on time. He had just gotten off of work. He says, oh, Mom, I'll be back. And he says, and I says, well, no, you know what? I need to borrow $500. So he gives me the money. Why? I don't know, but he did. And I says, I'm going to give it back to you tomorrow. He says, don't worry about it. He talks to my brother, and he and my brother leaves. This is about 10:45. The next day, it's about 3 o'clock, so I'm calling. He's not answering his phone. Somebody called me that morning, somebody that Cedric trusts and very close to us, called me that morning and says, hey, have you seen Cedric? I says, no, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. Why would I see Cedric?
Right.
He'll be here. And, well, he was supposed to come over and he didn't. And I says, well, call him his phone and it's dead. So I called him. I didn't get an answer. I didn't get an answer. I'm still not worried about it because he's never missed a family function. So he's going to be there. So it's about 4 o'clock. We're supposed to start at 6 o'clock. Cedric's not here. So I'm calling his phone. And I say a few things on the phone that I shouldn't say. And if you don't answer this phone, boy, I'm still don't answer. He doesn't show up for the family function. Immediately, we all knew something was wrong. Couldn't pin. We fast forward. We went on the next day, and we had another drop in. Still no Cedric. Still no answering the phone. He didn't show up at work. I said something's wrong, so we called the police. First, they want to tell me that he's grown, so he's got to be missing 72 hours. So I go through this whole thing about this is not like my child. They still won't give me anything before the 72 hours. So I called the news station. They gave me the runner. Mario with Million Youth March. I called him. He contacted the news, and they came out immediately. And they did the story on him. So we did a couple of interviews leading up to Christmas. Christmas Eve, he's never missed a Christmas Eve dinner, and he didn't show up. And my daughter and I were in there praying, and I said, you know how this is going to end. We know how it's going to end. We never lost hope. And she was like, Mom, I can't do this. What are we going to do? I said, we're going to activate our faith right now. We're just going to activate our faith. And God, I need you to give me the strength to be the strength that I've got to be for what's about to happen. The media came out. One of my girlfriends had passed away, and I was at the funeral. And I got a call from Channel 9 that they wanted to do a story that, talk. So I said, well, I'm at a funeral. Can you give me about an hour to get home? So I get home. And this is probably the fourth interview we had done with different media outlets, just if anybody has any information on the whereabouts of Cedric. And he's all over the news. They made it national, and so my daughter and I was sitting in the living room on the couch when they came in and started asking us questions. And then they interviewed our neighbors with Cedric's, what he's been doing in the neighborhood and how he was in the neighborhood. I received a phone tip. I got a phone call before, because it was sending a reward out for any information leading to information on him. I received a phone call as I was getting out the car, and the young lady said, I said, who am I? Because we had a Google number for them to call. I said, may I ask who am I speaking with? She says, it doesn't matter. I saw you on the news and you wanted some information about your son. Have the police to go to this address. She said, there's a young lady missing, but nobody has reported her missing. And your son was seen with her. There's somebody that fits his description was seen with him. So the media is there, and they're getting ready to do an interview with me. And I tell them, because I was talking to the lady, so I was running late, and I said, can you give me one moment? So I called the police, the detective that was on the case, and I says, I can tell you where you can find my son. I gave them the address. And I said to my daughter, we're going to be okay. We're going to go ahead and do this interview. But Cedric's okay right now. He's okay, just know that. So we did the interview, and the neighbors did the interview, and, we told stories about him. And as soon as we finished that interview, my grandson went out the house, because my daughter and I were sitting there, and we're praying. And so my grandson comes in, and he says, Mom, the detective's out there. And I said, okay. And then one of my girlfriend was there. She said, why would you tell her that? I said, because he wants me to know that they're getting ready here to tell me where they found my son. So it's okay. I go outside. The media is still there. The detective is telling them, please don't say anything because there's 2 people involved, and we have not contacted the other family. So then they say, Miss Watts, can we talk to you? They want to bring me in the house. I said, you could tell me. I'm good right now. I'm good. Just tell me what you need. Just let me know the tip that I gave you, is that where my child was? He said, yes. He says, it appears to be fentanyl, but we don't know if it's foul play yet. So we can't give you any more information than that. They fast forward to, we got through Christmas, and it was December the 27th when they gave us that information. And we kept calling in the coroner. Apparently there was only 2 coroners, and only one was working this particular day. And so they had about 7 or 8 bodies, and he was not on the top of the list. Well, I have some connection with someone that was in higher places that called to check on me when they found, the story came out that they had found him dead. And she said, don't worry about it. They'll call you, because the coroner was not calling me back days, and as soon as she made that phone call, they called me back, and they was able to release. Now, it still took them some time to give me some information on his case, but if it's a good thing, because we was always saying whatever happened to him, not to take away from the drugs, because there was drugs, but he used them. He was grown, and he made the choice. He was 36 at the time, so there's that 3 again. But he trusted somebody, and he knew this person. And that person, the detective, I know what happened. I'll take it to my grave, because it can cause some turmoil with some people that it doesn't need to be. My baby's okay. And the lives that he touched, because his funeral was just as big as my other sons. But the stories that came out from that, I have a young man now that goes to church with me because Cedric introduced him to the Lord. and he was homeless and on drugs and living in the back of my house. I didn't know, in a tent. Again, I live in a Hispanic neighborhood, so I thought it was a tent that the kids was playing in. When he shared the story, he says, that tent that was out there, your son used to come over to feed me on West Boulevard. And he said, man, I can't keep catching the bus over here. You got to come closer to here. And he moved him in the back of my house. And he fed him and he clothed him. But he did stuff like that. I got a call, about 3 months ago. A school teacher is calling. She says, I'm calling your number because we can't get in touch with Cedric. And I says, well, it's going to be hard to get in touch with him right now. But she said he was the contact person for these two siblings at school, and they've been acting out and not doing homework, not showing up. And they found out that they couldn't get in touch with Cedric to see why it wasn't. But it was a lot of stories where he was their mentor. So I know his work was done down here, even though his death was not the way I would have wanted it. And I don't feel any shame about it. I raised them according to God's word. They know the Bible. They were saved. All of my children were saved. I thank God for that. He was in church the Sunday prior to that. My pastor was talking about it, and bad choice. So I don't feel any guilt, anything, because I done my part. After they got of age, it's up to them to do their own.
How do you keep going? That's a lot of loss.
But it is, and it's by the grace of God. People say you got to move on. It's not that I don't move on. I just keep going. And I keep sharing their work and what they've done. And with these sons, Cedric was my Spider-Man, so I wear Spider-Man everywhere I go. We include Spider-Man in our sunshine baskets because I have to incorporate him now. I got angry with him. I said, now I got to do this whole mission all over again. It's not Sean's sunshine basket, so but every day somebody has a story to tell me about Cedric or Sean. I was in the food line the other day and this guy says, are you Sean's mom? I said, yeah, I'm going to have an identity one day, but yeah, I'm always somebody's mom or somebody's grandma. And then he starts crying because he missed the funeral and he wasn't there for us. No, it's okay. It's really okay. But I find myself comforting so many mothers that have lost a child. Even this one lady that I'm dealing with now, her son was found the exact same way mine was found. And you talk about guilt, and she was sharing she felt guilty because she didn't. And I said, that's okay that you're where you are now. It is. You've got to go through this journey that we're on. Everybody's is different.
Absolutely.
Everybody's is different. We all share in this grief, and to hear how other people deal with it, even with your grandmother, your mother, because I've lost those too. And I thought God was the most cruelest person in the world. How could you take a grandmother? How could you take her? But I says, okay, let me stop asking, how can you do this? Because he shows you.
Absolutely.
But I know he's there with me. Jesus stood by a tomb. So when I was there at my child's grave, he was there with me. Jesus wept. So he's there to wipe my tears. I never asked him to take my tears away. I want the memories to keep flowing.
Absolutely.
I just keep on going by the grace of God. Can't do it without him. And I know that was long.
It's okay. It's okay because it was more than one loss. I mean, I've had a lot of loss. Losing my dad at such a young age then, and for those of you who have followed my story, the man I called dad was not my daddy. I didn't get the full story until my daddy was gone. And, then me and my mama, I turned my back on my mom because I was just like, I came to you at a pretty young age. I mean, I was old enough to know right from wrong, but, kids called it playing the dozens when I was growing up. And they would literally make jokes about, oh, you don't know who your daddy is, you don't know, whatever. And so I went home and asked my mom. And she was like, well, who live in this house with you? You know who your daddy is. But then to find out at the age of 19 who my real dad was, and it still never came from my mom's mouth. I turned my back on my mom. But then God shook me up real quick because I was raised in the church. But, you know, after losing my dad, I turned to the streets. I tried to find that love in the streets. I didn't turn to, you know, hard drugs because back then the hard drug was marijuana.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was walking around on cloud nine all day, every day, boiling hot. I'm sitting in the sun. And I turned my back on my mom. But then I realized that there is not a handbook on parenting. You only get one father, one mother. And it says, honor thy father and thy mother. So I had to realize that it's okay. She's still your mama. And then she turns terminally ill. So I had to step up to the plate. And that was one of the things that I told her on her deathbed. I'm not mad at you. You my mom. And I will hold that until the day that I leave. It's just like, you know, honor thy father and thy mother, and thy days will be longer. There's a purpose in everything. Just like right now, it's raining. And soon there will be a rainbow that will appear as a way of that God shows up.
Promise.
And he's encouraging each and every one of us as we sit here and tell our stories.
Absolutely.
That lightning that's coming through, I feel like it's just one of our angels sparkling through. Every time the thunder rumbles, it's somebody saying, amen. So, you know, it's signs all around us. But to lose your husband, your child, not one, but two, and to still keep going, that lets us know that grief did not put a barrier to your faith.
Absolutely not.
You persevered and you kept going. And that is what I want the audience to know, is that grief has such a negative connotation, but it's not.
It's not.
It is truly love without a home. All we got to do is build that foundation and put those walls up.
Absolutely.
And keep going.
Yeah.
Like you say, we ain't moving on.
Never.
We just keep going. Because we have to lean not on our own understanding.
Yes.
We got to keep going. So, what advice would you give to our audience to keep moving on, to keep going, to keep pushing, no matter what? To that mother who has lost a child, because you know they say no mother or father should have to bury their child. But it's not on our time. It's on God's time. And I say all the time, we on borrowed
We on
time.
borrowed time?
Absolutely.
We think that we got all this time, and we don't. And as a child, you know, one thing that your parent always used to tell you, you're going to wake up and realize what I'm telling you. You gonna see. You gonna see. Man, whatever. You just old. You just talking. But I find myself constantly now saying those same exact things. I'm on borrowed time. Tomorrow's not promised. So what advice would you give to somebody who loses a grandmother, who loses a child, who loses a husband, to keep going and not just moving on?
I would say the first advice I would give is to first allow yourself to grieve properly. And it doesn't have to look like everybody else's grief or their process. don't move on too quickly. I noticed after the fact that when my grandmother died, I really pushed myself to get back into it too soon. So I found myself getting back into work and doing all these things instead of just pausing and say, it's okay to cry today. It's okay to reach out to somebody to help and talk to. It's okay to have check-ins with yourself. It's okay not to be okay. And so just honoring yourself, but also your loved one in your grief by giving yourself the time that you need and grieving properly. The second thing that helped me a lot was just thinking about the memories. Every time I think about my grandma, there's a smile because she just smiled all the time. She enjoyed life to the fullest. And so I take that with me. If I'm having a bad day, I'll just think about a memory that I have with her. Actually, I have my favorite picture of us is us together. We're holding each other and laughing at the scenes. Like, and it's in my home now. And every time I look at it, and we took the picture before she died. She would always see the picture and be like, that's my favorite picture with my granddaughter. No. So I keep it close by because it brings me so much joy to remember her in that way, not the way that I saw her the last week of her life. She was very sick and weak. And so that's not what I want to remember. I want to remember the times when we laughed and could barely stop, could make sentences. I want to remember the time when I'd walk in her home and I just smell this aroma of the best food you could ever have in your life because she was an amazing cook. I want to remember the Christmases I shared with her where she may not have had the best, but I know that she would give whatever she had. Birthdays, every year, I get a card and it will have $5 in it, right? That's not a lot of money, right? She was retired, but I was like, oh yeah, Rachel's going to Starbucks now. I would joke with her because that's what I was used to every single year. Yeah. And so now sometimes people step in to do things that she used to do. Like my aunt sometimes sends cards. Or my mom will send me a card for my birthday, and I'm like, yeah, my grandma will want me to get Starbucks today, so I'm gonna get my Starbucks. The color purple, every time I see it, I think of her because it was her favorite color. It's now my favorite color. It just reminds me of how special she was.
I would say the same as Rachel, thinking of those memories and doing things that we used to do together. So, we used to go pick strawberries every Mother's Day weekend. Father's Day weekend, we would pick blackberries. So that's what I'm going to, do for Father's Day weekend, pick blackberries and, laugh and go to those places that we shared together and think of those memories. And also, for me, it was really accepting, like, okay, like I said before, she's not here, but she's still with me. It's just different now, celebrating her for who she was in health, not in the sickness part of it, right? So remembering that piece of her. And it really, for me, it was drawing towards my tribe, drawing toward them to be able to get through the grief and being vulnerable, right? To be vulnerable and allow people to see me in that place of brokenness. Because for me, I always was like, oh, I gotta be, hold this face on, right? Because, after my grandmother passed, my grandfather's still here. I gotta be the caregiver for him. I gotta take care of him. I can't break down because who's gonna take care of him? So for me, it was to be vulnerable, to say, okay, I'm not having a good day today. Like you said, I need to cry. I need to let it out. I need to, whatever I need to do. If I need to scream, I need to scream. If I need a hug, I need a hug. But to have people that I can actually open up and be vulnerable with and experience that with, that was the biggest thing for me to be able to process grief. And to dwell in that piece of just her life, to be able to have almost 33 years of life with her, I always tell people I was her favorite, they said I wasn't the favorite, but I said I was. I was like her. She took me everywhere with her. If you didn't, yeah, so I was, even when she was, just the process of just going through it, to be able to have that, like I said, that vulnerability and have someone to be able to support was the biggest thing for me. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I would, ditto to what everybody says, it's those memories. And I would say also allow others to be there for you. And it's okay to have some silent time, but if somebody wants to help, allow them. Let them, show your vulnerability. Like my family, again, as you see my sister, I told her that she's here with me. So allow them, I don't know if they don't think I could do things by myself, but after my mom passed, everybody calls me my mom. So it's like you, I felt like I had to be the strong one. And at one point I wondered, I haven't had time to grieve because there's another grief that I got to go through. So, and then when people started saying, "Oh, you're so strong," so it didn't allow me to grieve, because now if I break down, oh, there's that Christian. I thought she was strong, but I'm okay with that. Like you say, I yell, I scream, I do like Daniel, and I cry out on God. Well, he and I I yell and I cry, and then I go out and I laugh at myself, and then I go out on my balcony, and my cardinals are sitting there that I needed, because they come to see me. So my two angels come, and I see them. But allow your surrounding to be there for you. Let them, and take some time for self-care, because I say to myself, if I don't take care of Arlene, I can't take care of others. And I know God has put me here to be there for others. I love to serve. I'm a server, and I'm a giver. So I keep going. I keep telling myself this Energizer Bunny, and everybody keeps saying, "Well, you're going to retire in 2 years." I'm going to retire from Mecklenburg County Park and Rec, but not from God. I'm going to continue to do this. When I leave here, and I'll say to people, when I leave this work, I want to be empty. I want God to have used everything inside of me. I just want to be empty. So I'll say to that mother, today may be a bad day, but just keep on keeping on. And if somebody asks me how am I feeling, I'm not good today, and that's okay. And I tell parents that all the time. It's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is definitely okay not to be okay. Well, thank you ladies so much for opening up and sharing your story with who knows how many people that are tapped in today. I greatly appreciate it, as I feel that there is a purpose. We have to release it. We have to heal in order to help others heal. And if we are holding it in, we can't heal. So just my final thoughts, as I've been praying and reflecting on my own grief, and tuning in when others around me speak on grief too, as I feel like that it's becoming more and more an open conversation. I came across, like I told you guys earlier, my friend here, Tommy Nichols, doing a live recording with City Councilman Malcolm Graham most recently, a couple of weeks ago. And Malcolm touched on the loss of his sister, whom was a part of the Emmanuel 9 in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. And something that he said has really, truly resonated with me. And I think that you guys have actually seen it exhibited here today. And that is where we must get busy and do the work. As you can see with Rachel and Ruth Ellis' touch, her grandmother was loving and just outpouring to others, always putting a smile on someone's face. Your child, outpouring, always putting a smile on somebody's face. So now you're giving sunshine baskets. I'm still wanting my sunshine basket at LCI, okay? And then Shaniqua, I think my connection with Shaniqua is just, she always smiling. It's always laughter, no matter what. And, even during her loss, it was just like, oh God, y'all, Neek just lost her grandma. What we gonna do? That's her mama. But it was always a smile. So it's like, you're not letting it get to you. You can't let it get to you. We got to get out here and do the work. It doesn't really have to be something extravagant. Something as simple as a smile. You're helping someone. That's all they need. is that simple smile.
Absolutely.
And one other thing that he said during the interview, tears and sweat, they have the same
They
production.
say,
They both salty.
amen to that.
One is just sorrow, and one is from production, getting out there doing the work. So it's just like, yo, we gotta, we gotta do the work, stay busy. Don't always have a negative mindset of what is happening to us, because there's a purpose. And that is my advice to our audience. It's just as you've seen here today. Grief, it has such a negative connotation, but it is not a negative thing. You see that it has built us up. Even someone who has lost a husband and 2 kids, still going. So you too can keep going. Stay strong. Remember Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord. Lean not on your own understanding. And you too can keep going. That's it. That's all. Thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast, Friday Fuel episode, Good Grief. Until next time.